The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversation as beings from dozens of worlds took their seats. The massive chamber could hold thousands, but today only the most important leaders were present. Crystal beings floated near the ceiling while insect-like creatures crawled along specially built walls. At the center of it all stood a single figure that everyone was staring at. Commander Vexthul had once been the greatest military mind in the galaxy. His 4 arms had commanded fleets that conquered entire star systems. His 3 eyes had seen the fall of empires. But now those same eyes were wide with something that looked like fear, and his hands shook as he held his speaking device. The other council members whispered among themselves. Some called him a hero, others called him crazy. All of them thought he had lost his mind somewhere in the depths of space. Honored council members, Vexthul began, his voice cracking slightly. I have served our galaxy for 300 years. I have fought in more wars than most of you have seen seasons. I have watched species bow before our might and planets burn under our weapons. He paused, looking around the room at faces that showed everything from boredom to annoyance. Only a few seemed to be really listening. But there is one world in this galaxy that we must never attack. One species that we should leave alone forever. I am talking about the 3rd planet in the Sol system, the world they call Earth. A sound like electronic laughter came from speaker Zafara, whose energy form flickered with amusement inside her crystal container. Commander, we have heard this speech before. You claim these humans are somehow dangerous, but our scouts report they can barely travel between their own planets. They fight with metal bullets and chemical explosives. They are nothing. Vexthul's mandibles clicked together in frustration. With shaking hands, he activated a hologram showing a blue and green world floating in space. Earth looked peaceful from orbit, with white clouds swirling over continents and oceans. Look closer, he said. Do not see just the pretty planet. Look at what they do to each other. The hologram changed, showing images from Earth's surface. Battles raged across continents. Explosions lit up the night sky. Soldiers ran through burning cities. Ships fought in oceans while aircraft battled in the skies above. They have been at war for their entire recorded history, Vexthul continued. Not just occasionally, like most species. Constantly. Always. Somewhere on their planet, humans are fighting other humans every single day. Admiral Korthek rose from his massive chair. The huge creature's shell gleamed under the chamber lights as he spoke in a voice like grinding stone. So they fight among themselves. Many primitive species do this before they learn wisdom. It means nothing. You are wrong. Vexthul's voice grew stronger. It means everything. Most species fight for food or territory or resources. Humans fight for ideas. They fight for beliefs. They fight for concepts that exist only in their minds, and they are very, very good at it. The hologram showed new images. Human soldiers charging across battlefields with primitive weapons, aircraft diving into ships in suicide attacks, cities fighting street by street until nothing was left but rubble. They have turned warfare into art, Vexthul said. They study it like science. They write poetry about it. They build their entire cultures around the idea of fighting and dying for causes they believe in. More electronic laughter came from around the chamber. Council members were starting to look bored. Some had already begun working on other business. Commander, Speaker Zafara said, her form pulsing with impatience. Even if everything you say is true, they are still just one primitive world. Our smallest battle fleet could destroy them in hours. Vexthul was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper, but somehow everyone in the chamber could hear him. I thought the same thing once. 20 years ago, I commanded a small expedition to their system. We were just supposed to observe them, to see if they were worth conquering someday. We stayed hidden and watched. The chamber grew quieter. Even the board council members were starting to pay attention now. We watched them fight a war they called World War II. We watched them build weapons that could destroy entire cities with single bombs. We watched them organize their entire planet for war, turning every factory, every farm, every citizen into part of their war machine. The hologram changed again, showing grainy images of massive battles, huge explosions, endless lines of soldiers and vehicles. But that was not the frightening part, Vexthul continued. The frightening part was how they fought. When their enemies surrounded their cities, they did not surrender. They fought in the ruins. When their ships were sinking, the crews kept firing until the water covered their guns. When their aircraft were shot down, the pilots crashed them into enemy targets. His 3 eyes focused on Admiral Korthek. You said they fight like primitives. You are wrong. They fight like nothing else in this galaxy. They fight like beings who would rather die than lose. Impressive for primitives, Admiral Korthek rumbled, but they were fighting other primitives with the same weapons. Against our technology, their determination would mean nothing. Vexthal laughed, but it was not a happy sound. That is what I thought too, until I saw what happened when they were truly threatened. The chamber fell silent. Even Speaker Zephara's form stopped flickering. Near the end of their war, one side was losing badly. Their enemies were winning everywhere. Their cities were being bombed daily. Their people were dying by the millions. Any reasonable species would have surrendered. Vexthal's voice dropped even lower. Instead, they started building a weapon that could destroy their entire planet. Not to use against their enemies, but to deny those enemies the victory. They were prepared to kill every living thing on their world rather than accept defeat. The silence stretched on for several heartbeats. That, Vexthal said, is when I realized we were watching something that had never existed before in this galaxy. A species that would choose extinction over surrender. A species that saw death as preferable to defeat. Admiral Korthek's shell rattled as he shifted uncomfortably. You are talking about one desperate moment in their history. It proves nothing about their current capabilities. Does it not? Vexthal asked. Because they never stopped building those world-ending weapons. They built thousands of them. They pointed them at each other for decades, ready to destroy their entire civilization rather than let the other side win. He looked around the chamber one more time. I am telling you, honored council members, that there is something broken in the human species. Something that makes them more dangerous than any weapon, any fleet, any army we have ever faced. They are not like us. When we are threatened, we calculate odds and make reasonable decisions. When they are threatened, they become something else entirely. The voting began immediately. Council member after council member voted to dismiss Vexthal's warnings. They voted to place him on medical leave for his own good. They voted to forget about his strange obsession with one primitive world. As Vexthal left the chamber, he could hear them already making plans for a diplomatic mission to Sol System. They wanted to see these fascinating humans for themselves. He did not try to stop them. There was no point. They would learn soon enough. 3 months after the council meeting, Admiral Korthek floated in his command chair aboard the flagship Dominion's Pride. Around him, dozens of screens showed the blue world called Earth growing larger as his fleet approached. 24 ships, each one capable of destroying cities, moved in perfect formation toward humanity's home. The Admiral felt confident. His intelligence teams had spent weeks studying human communications, trying to understand these primitive beings. What they found had only made him more certain that this would be easy. Admiral, his communications officer buzzed. We have analyzed more of their entertainment broadcasts. They seem obsessed with violence and conflict, but it is clearly fictional. Their actual military capabilities are centuries behind ours. Korthek nodded his massive head. The humans did seem to love stories about war and fighting. Their movies showed impossible heroes performing miraculous feats. Their music often spoke of death and battle. Their books were full of warriors and soldiers. Primitive wish fulfillment, he rumbled. They dream of being warriors because they know they are weak. On the screens, Earth continued to grow. The Admiral could see the continents now, and the lights of human cities on the dark side of the planet. So many cities, so many humans. They would make excellent workers once they accepted hegemony rule. Sir, called the sensor operator, we are detecting increased activity on the planet's surface. Military bases are showing high-energy signatures. Aircraft are launching from many locations. Expected, Korthek said. They are probably trying to organize some kind of defense. How long until we reach optimal position? 2 hours, sir. Good. Begin broadcasting the surrender demand on all their communication frequencies. The message went out in dozens of human languages, transmitted on every radio and television signal the humans used. It was simple and direct. The same message the hegemony had sent to hundreds of worlds before Earth. Primitive species of the third planet, you have been chosen for incorporation into the hegemony. Surrender immediately and you will be treated fairly as workers and servants. Resist and your species will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to respond. In the cities below, humans gathered around radios and televisions to hear the alien message. In military bases, commanders looked at radar screens showing the approaching alien fleet. In government buildings, leaders tried to understand what was happening. On the destroyer Sejong the Great, Lieutenant Taimin stood on the bridge watching the alien ships approach. His captain, an older man named Commander Park, was speaking quietly into his radio. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," came the voice through the speakers. "The enemy has given us 1 hour to surrender. The President's response is as follows. Come and take it." Taimin felt something cold move through his stomach, but it was not fear. It was excitement. He had trained his whole life for battle, but he had never thought it would be against aliens trying to conquer his world. Around the Pacific Ocean, every human warship received the same message. In Korea, Japan, America, China, and Russia, naval commanders gave the same orders. All ships prepare for battle. Remember, we are not just fighting for our countries today. We are fighting for our species. High above, Bora strapped herself into the cockpit of her F-35 fighter jet. Around her, dozens of other pilots were doing the same thing. Most of them were scared. All of them were determined. "Listen up," came the voice of her squadron commander over the radio. "The aliens think we are going to line up our ships and planes for a nice traditional battle. They think we fight like them. They are wrong." Bora checked her weapons one more time. Her plane carried missiles, but it also carried something else. A small nuclear warhead that could be detonated manually. Every fighter in her squadron had the same modification. "Our job is not to win a fair fight," the commander continued. "Our job is to make them regret coming here. If any of you get the chance to take one of their big ships with you, take it. Make them pay for every meter of space they try to take from us." The hour was almost up. In the alien fleet, Admiral Korthek waited for the surrender message that he was sure would come. Primitive species always surrendered when they saw the size of a hegemony battle fleet. Instead, his communications officer received something very different. "Sir, we are getting responses from the planet's surface." "Many responses. Good," Korthek said. "Put the surrender message on the main screen." But when the human response appeared, it was not what he expected. Instead of words of surrender from world leaders, every military base on the planet was broadcasting the same simple message. "Come and take it. What does this mean?" Korthek asked his intelligence officer. "It appears to be a challenge, sir. Our analysis suggests it means they intend to resist." Korthek's shell rattled with what might have been laughter. "The entire planet? They are going to resist with their primitive weapons against our fleet? Begin the attack. Target their military installations first. Once they see our power, they will surrender quickly." The hegemony ships opened fire with energy weapons that could melt steel and vaporize concrete. Military bases on Earth erupted in explosions as alien beams struck them from space. But something strange happened. Instead of the desperate defensive battle Korthek expected, the humans seemed to disappear. "Sir," his sensor operator reported, "we are hitting the targets, but we are not detecting the mass casualties we expected. It appears that most of the humans evacuated their bases before we fired." "Evacuated to where?" "We are not sure, sir. Our sensors are having difficulty tracking them. They seem to be spreading out into the cities and countryside." Korthek frowned. This was not how conquest was supposed to work. The humans should be gathering their forces to defend important locations. Instead, they were scattering like insects. "Continue the bombardment," he ordered. "Target their government centers and major cities. Once their leaders are dead, the rest will surrender." But as the alien ships fired at human cities, something unexpected happened. The humans fired back. Taimin's destroyer launched its missiles just as the alien beam weapons destroyed a coastal city. The ship's nuclear-tipped missiles streaked toward the alien fleet, but they were shot down long before reaching their targets. "Sir," Taimin called to his captain, "our weapons cannot reach them from this range." Commander Park smiled grimly. "Then we get closer." The Sejong the Great and every other human warship began moving at full speed toward the alien fleet. The aliens targeted them immediately, destroying ship after ship with their powerful weapons. But the human ships did not stop. Even when their weapons were destroyed, even when their engines were damaged, they kept coming. "What are they doing?" Admiral Korthek demanded as he watched human ships burning but still approaching his fleet. "Sir, I believe they are attempting ramming attacks." Korthek had heard of such tactics from primitive species, but he had never seen them used against modern warships. The idea seemed insane. The human ships were tiny compared to his vessels. Even a direct collision would barely damage a hegemony ship. He was wrong. Taimin's destroyer, engines dead and hull breached in a dozen places, used its last power to fire maneuvering thrusters. The ship accelerated directly toward the alien flagship just as its nuclear reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the ocean for hundreds of kilometers. When the light faded, the alien flagship was gone and Admiral Korthek was dead. High in the atmosphere, Borod led her squadron in a diving attack on the remaining alien ships. Her missiles were useless against their shields, but she had not planned to use missiles. "All aircraft," she called over the radio. "Remember what we trained for. Target their weapon systems. Get close enough that they cannot miss us, then give them something to remember." One by one, human fighter jets crashed into alien warships. Each explosion was tiny compared to the massive alien vessels, but the pilots aimed for specific targets: weapon ports, sensor arrays, engine nacelles. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that did not behave like any they had faced before. Human ships did not retreat when outgunned. Human aircraft did not break off attacks when fired upon. Human soldiers did not surrender when surrounded. Instead, they did something that no other species in the galaxy had ever done when faced with superior technology. They turned their own deaths into weapons. By the end of the first day, half the alien fleet was destroyed or damaged. The humans had lost most of their navy and air force, but they had proven something important. They would rather die fighting than live under alien rule. In the command center of a mountain base that the aliens had not yet found, General Hyunwoo looked at reports from around the world. Every human military force was receiving the same orders: disappear, hide, and make the aliens pay for every meter of ground they wanted to control. "Sir," his aide reported, "we are getting messages from civilian leaders. They want to know what our strategy is for defending the cities." Hyunwoo looked out at the night sky, where alien ships glowed like malevolent stars. "Tell them our strategy is simple," he said. "We are going to teach these aliens why every other species in the galaxy should be afraid of humans." 6 months had passed since the aliens first appeared over Earth. What they expected to be a simple conquest had become a nightmare that spread across every continent. Commander Thekvar, the new leader of the alien fleet after Admiral Korthek's death, floated in his command chair and stared at the reports covering his screens. Each one told the same impossible story. His technologically superior forces were losing to primitive humans. "How many ships did we lose today?" he asked his aide. 3 destroyers and a cruiser, sir. The humans used some kind of explosive device hidden in what appeared to be a civilian transport ship." Thekvar's tentacles writhed with frustration. The humans had stopped fighting like a normal military. Instead, they fought like every single person on their planet was a soldier willing to die for their cause. In the ruins of Seoul, Captain Hyunwoo crouched in the basement of a destroyed building with his special forces team. Around him, men and women who had once been soldiers, police officers, and civilians worked together to prepare their next attack. "The alien supply convoy will pass through this area in 2 hours," he said, pointing to a map spread across a makeshift table. "Intelligence says they are carrying food and medical supplies to their forces in the north." One of his team members, a former police officer named Jin Suk, raised her hand. "Captain, should we capture the supplies for ourselves?" Hyunwoo shook his head. "No, we destroy everything. Our job is not to win battles or capture territory. Our job is to make the aliens regret ever coming to our world." This was the new reality of the war. Humans had realized they could not defeat the alien technology in direct combat, so they had changed the rules. Every human city had become a fortress. Every human civilian had become a potential fighter. Every human death had become a weapon designed to break alien morale. The aliens controlled the skies and most of the major cities, but they could not control the humans themselves. Resistance fighters emerged from sewers to attack alien patrols, then disappeared back underground. Civilian buildings exploded when aliens tried to use them. Human prisoners, when captured, either killed themselves or gave false information that led alien forces into carefully prepared traps. In a hidden bunker beneath the remains of the United Nations building, Dr. So Young worked at a computer terminal surrounded by military commanders from dozens of countries. As Earth's new strategic coordinator, she had helped develop what humans were calling the Terra Doctrine. "The aliens expect us to fight like they do," she explained to a group of resistance leaders connected by secure radio. "They expect us to mass our forces, defend territory, and surrender when we take too many casualties. Instead, we are going to fight like humans have always fought when our survival is threatened." On her screen, she displayed a world map showing the current state of the war. Red areas marked alien-controlled territory. Blue dots showed active human resistance cells. The aliens held the major cities, but the blue dots covered everything else. "The Terra Doctrine has 4 main points," So Young continued. "First, we accept that winning battles is less important than making the enemy suffer losses. Second, we treat every human death as a weapon that should inflict maximum damage on alien morale. Third, we target the aliens' ability to think clearly by showing them horrors they are not prepared for. Fourth, we make sure they understand that even if they kill every human on Earth, we will find a way to make them pay for it." The last point was not just words. Hidden in bunkers around the world, human scientists worked desperately to complete projects that had been started in the first weeks of the war. Some teams worked on weapons that could destroy alien ships. Others worked on diseases that could affect alien biology. Still others worked on ways to send messages to other worlds, to make sure the galaxy knew what the aliens had done to humanity. In the ruins of Tokyo, former fighter pilot Bo-Ra led a team of engineers who had captured an alien transport ship. For weeks they had studied the alien technology, learning how it worked and looking for weaknesses. "Their power systems are more efficient than ours," she explained to her team, "but they have a critical flaw. If we can overload their energy conduits, their own power will destroy them from the inside." Working with tools salvaged from destroyed factories and parts taken from alien wrecks, Bora's team built weapons that could turn alien technology against itself. Within days, resistance fighters across Japan were using modified alien weapons to destroy alien vehicles and buildings. But the most effective human weapon was not technology. It was psychology. The aliens had expected to fight soldiers who would eventually surrender when the battle became hopeless. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire species that treated death as preferable to defeat. Commander Thekvar received daily reports that filled him with growing horror. Human prisoners who smiled while being interrogated, then killed themselves with hidden weapons. Human civilians who welcomed alien soldiers into their homes, then detonated explosives that killed everyone in the building. Human children who approached alien patrols with gifts that turned out to be bombs. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we have analyzed human communications and behavior patterns. We believe their entire species may be suffering from a form of mass insanity." "What do you mean?" "They appear to find the prospect of dying in battle more appealing than the prospect of living under our rule. This is unlike any species we have encountered. Most beings have a strong survival instinct that makes them choose life over death when given the choice." Thekvar studied the reports. Human resistance fighters who laughed while being shot. Human ship crews who sang songs while crashing their vessels into alien targets. Human families who chose to die together rather than be separated. "Are they all insane?" he asked. "No, sir. That is what makes this so disturbing. They appear to be thinking clearly and making rational decisions based on their own values. They simply value things like freedom and dignity more than they value their own lives." This was something the aliens could not understand. In their culture, survival was the highest goal. Death was the ultimate defeat. The idea of choosing death over surrender was so foreign to them that many alien soldiers were beginning to suffer from stress disorders. Reports came in of alien units that refused to patrol human cities. Alien ship crews that requested transfers away from Earth. Alien commanders who reported their forces were psychologically unsuitable for occupation duty. The breaking point came when humans began to deliberately target alien morale in systematic ways. Captain Minho had been a naval intelligence officer before the war. Now he led a team of specialists whose job was to study captured alien equipment and prisoners. What they learned, they used to create psychological warfare campaigns designed to break alien willpower. "We have learned several important things about alien psychology," he reported to resistance commanders around the world. "They are terrified of death in ways that humans are not. They cannot understand why we choose to fight when victory is impossible. Most importantly, they have never encountered an enemy that fights specifically to inflict psychological damage rather than to win territory." Minho's teams began broadcasting messages on alien communication frequencies. The messages included recordings of human voices speaking in alien languages, telling stories of human resistance and describing what humans plan to do to any alien who remained on Earth. But more effective than words were images. Human fighters began leaving specific types of evidence at attack sites, pictures of alien soldiers who had been killed, along with personal information about those soldiers' families and homeworlds. The message was clear. Humans were learning everything about their enemy, and no alien was safe even after the war ended. The psychological campaign reached its peak when human hackers, led by a computer programmer named Jae-sung, managed to break into alien communication networks and broadcast a message directly to the alien homeworlds. The message was simple, but terrifying. We are humans. You sent soldiers to conquer our world. We are going to make sure every alien in the galaxy remembers what happens when you threaten us. No matter how long it takes, no matter how many of us die, we will find your worlds and we will make you pay for what you have done. The broadcast included footage of the war on Earth, alien ships being destroyed by suicidal human attacks, alien soldiers being killed by human fighters who refused to surrender, alien equipment being turned into weapons against its creators. But the most disturbing part of the broadcast was the faces of the humans in the footage. They were not the faces of desperate, defeated people. They were the faces of people who had found something worth dying for, and who looked forward to the chance to prove their dedication. Within days of the broadcast, the alien fleet began receiving messages from their homeworlds. Families of alien soldiers demanded their return. Political leaders questioned the wisdom of continuing a war against such an enemy. Military commanders expressed doubt about their forces' ability to maintain morale in the face of human psychological warfare. Commander Thekvar looked at the latest casualty reports and realized that his forces had lost more ships to human suicide attacks in the past month than they had lost in the previous 5 years of normal warfare. 1 year had passed since the aliens first arrived at Earth, and Commander Thekvar was beginning to understand why his predecessor had been killed. The war that was supposed to last days had become a nightmare that consumed everything it touched. In his private quarters aboard the command ship, Thekvar stared at reports that would have seemed impossible a year ago. His forces controlled most of Earth's major cities and all of the orbital space around the planet. By every traditional measure of warfare, the hegemony had won, but the humans refused to accept defeat. "Sir," his communications officer buzzed through the intercom, "we have received another message from the Council. They are demanding an update on the conquest." "Timeline!" Thekvar's tentacles curled with bitter amusement. Timeline. The Council still believed this was a normal war that would end with human surrender and alien victory. They did not understand what the humans had become. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Thekvar activated the secure channel and found himself looking at the three-eyed face of Intelligence Director Morvex. "Commander," the director began without greeting, "I have disturbing news from the outer colonies. 3 of our agricultural worlds have gone silent in the past week." Thekvar's blood went cold. "Silent? What do you mean silent?" "No communications, no shipping schedules, no administrative reports. We sent investigation teams to all 3 worlds. What they found?" Morvex paused, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "Commander, the humans have left Earth." The screen filled with images from the silent worlds. Morvex's voice continued as Thekvar stared at scenes of destruction, unlike anything in hegemony history. "They used sleeper ships, launched before our arrival at Earth. Small vessels, barely detectable, carrying perhaps 50 humans each. They reached our outer colonies and began systematic warfare against civilian populations. The images showed burning farms, destroyed cities, and worst of all, carefully arranged displays of alien bodies. The humans had not simply killed the colonists. They had arranged the deaths to send a message. On Kepler 442b, they contaminated the entire agricultural system with Earth bacteria, modified to be toxic to our biology. The world cannot support our life forms for the next several centuries. On TRAPPIST-1e, they destroyed the orbital manufacturing platforms by turning civilian shuttles into guided missiles. On Ross 128b, Morvex's voice trailed off as the images showed the worst scene of all. The human attackers had captured the planetary communication center and used it to broadcast a message to every world in that sector of space. "We are humans from the world you call. Sol 3, your people came to our world to make us slaves. Now you will learn why every species in this galaxy should fear us. We do not fight for territory or resources. We fight to teach lessons that will never be forgotten. Tekvar watched in growing horror as the broadcast showed human fighters systematically destroying everything the aliens had built on that world. But they did not stop with military targets. They destroyed art galleries, libraries, cultural centers. They eliminated everything that made alien civilization worth preserving. The message continued. Your military leaders believe they can conquer us because their technology is superior. They do not understand that humans have spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other with whatever tools we have available. Technology does not matter. Will matters. And our will is stronger than yours. How many humans were involved in these attacks? Tekvar asked. No more than a few hundred on each world, Morvex replied. They did not try to hold territory or establish bases. They simply destroyed everything they could reach, then disappeared before our response fleets arrived. Tekvar turned off the communication and sat in silence for a long time. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic warfare. They had turned the hegemony's own size against it. While the main alien fleet was occupied with Earth, small human forces had struck at worlds that were lightly defended because no one had ever attacked hegemony civilian targets before. But worse than the attacks themselves was their effect on alien morale throughout the galaxy. News of the destroyed worlds had spread despite official attempts to suppress it. For the first time in hegemony history, civilian populations were demanding protection from an enemy force. A priority alert interrupted his thoughts. His tactical officer appeared on the communication screen, all four of his eyes wide with excitement. Sir, we have detected massive energy signatures from the human resistance. It appears they are preparing some kind of major attack. Tekvar moved quickly to the command center, where his staff was analyzing sensor readings from the planet's surface. The displays showed energy patterns unlike anything they had seen before. What are they building down there? He demanded. Unknown, sir. The energy signatures suggest they are powering some kind of large-scale industrial process. Our best analysis indicates they may be manufacturing weapons of some kind. On the surface of Earth, in hidden factories built in mountain caves and underground bunkers, humans worked with desperate efficiency to complete projects that had been planned from the first day of the war. Some teams built weapons designed to destroy alien ships. Others worked on communication systems that could reach other star systems. But the most important project was taking place in a facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, where physicist Dr. Yoon-ji led a team working on humanity's final insurance policy. The aliens think they can break our will by threatening to destroy our planet, she explained to her exhausted team. They do not understand that we have been planning for that possibility since the day they arrived. The project had a simple goal: ensure that even if every human on Earth died, the human species would survive long enough to make the aliens regret their attack. Hidden throughout the solar system, automated ships waited with instructions to carry human DNA, human culture, and human knowledge to distant stars. But more than preservation, these ships carried something else: detailed information about hegemony technology, military tactics, and homeworld locations. If humanity died, other species would eventually find these ships and learn everything humans had discovered about their enemy. We are not just fighting for Earth, Dr. Yoon-ji said. We are fighting to ensure that if we lose, our enemies will never feel safe again. The message was already spreading through the galaxy in ways the aliens did not expect. Human broadcasts were being intercepted by other species, many of whom had suffered under hegemony rule in the past. The sight of one small world fighting back against impossible odds was inspiring rebellions on dozens of planets. In the ruins of New York City, teenager Yu-jin led a squad of fighters who had never known peacetime. At 17, she was already a veteran of hundreds of battles against alien forces. Her unit's motto was painted on their improvised armor: "Death is our business, and business is good." Yu-jin's team represented something new in human warfare: soldiers who had been shaped by the war from childhood. They fought with a casual brutality that shocked even hardened alien veterans. Where older human fighters still remembered peace and fought to restore it, Yu-jin's generation fought because war was all they had ever known. Target approaching from the north, called Minsu, her second in command. He was 16 and had been fighting aliens since he was 14. Looks like a patrol convoy. Yu-jin checked her weapons. Like most resistance fighters, she carried a mixture of human and alien equipment, modified and combined in ways that no engineer had ever intended. "Remember the drill," she said to her squad. We are not trying to capture their supplies or hold their position. We are trying to make them afraid to leave their bases. The attack was swift and brutal. Eugen's team struck the alien convoy from multiple directions, using explosives to disable their vehicles, and then disappearing back into the urban ruins before alien reinforcements could arrive. But they left behind something that had become standard practice for human fighters: recordings of the attack that would be broadcast on alien communication channels, along with personal messages directed at the families of the aliens who had been killed. "Tell your leaders," Eugen spoke directly into the camera, her young face stained with smoke and blood, "that this is what happens when you threaten human children. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it, and we will make sure your children know the price of what you have done to ours." The psychological impact of such messages was devastating to alien forces. They were accustomed to fighting soldiers who had been trained for war. The idea of fighting children who had been shaped by war into perfect killing machines was something their minds could not easily process. "Commander, Tekvar received reports that entire alien units were requesting transfer away from Earth. Some had begun to suffer from what human psychiatrists would have called post-traumatic stress disorder, caused not by their own experiences in battle, but by witnessing what the humans had become. The breaking point arrived when the Hegemony High Command sent a final ultimatum to Earth: surrender immediately, or face complete planetary destruction. The human response came from every resistance cell, every military unit, and every civilian leader simultaneously. It was broadcast on every alien communication channel and transmitted to every hegemony world. 18 months after first contact, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different. Half the seats stood empty as member worlds had withdrawn from the hegemony, rather than continue association with the Earth campaign. The remaining representatives sat in uncomfortable silence as they waited for the emergency session to begin. Commander Vexthul entered the chamber slowly, his forearms no longer trembling with age but steady with grim satisfaction. The veteran who had been dismissed as mad now walked like someone whose worst predictions had come true. Speaker Zafara's crystal form flickered weakly as she addressed the assembly. "Commander Vexthul, you have requested this emergency session to discuss the situation at Sol 3. "The situation," Vexthul repeated, his voice carrying across the nearly empty chamber. "Is that what we are calling it now? Not a war, not a conquest, a situation." He activated the holographic display that dominated the center of the hall. Instead of the peaceful blue world they had seen 18 months ago, Earth now showed the scars of extended warfare. Cities burned, continents were marked with the traces of orbital bombardment, and the night side of the planet flickered with the lights of ongoing battles. "Let me show you what your diplomatic mission has accomplished," Vexthul said. The display changed to show casualty reports from across hegemony space. The numbers were staggering. 12 colony worlds evacuated due to human sabotage, 4 agricultural systems contaminated and unusable, 16 military bases destroyed by human infiltrators, 3 entire fleets recalled from active service due to psychological breakdown of their crews. "The humans have done something unprecedented in galactic warfare," Vexthul continued. "They have made us afraid of them." Admiral Korthek's replacement, a younger officer named Bektar, rose from his seat. His shell showed the stress fractures that came from extended combat command. "Commander, our forces still control Earth's orbit and most of its major population centers. By any military standard, we are winning." Vexthul's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Are we? Then why did your predecessor request emergency rotation of his entire command staff? Why are we receiving surrender requests from units that have not even been engaged in battle? Why are 3 member worlds considering withdrawal from the hegemony?" The display changed again, showing intercepted human communications from around the galaxy. The messages were being broadcast from hidden transmitters on dozens of worlds, all carrying the same theme. Humans were still fighting, still resisting, still finding new ways to strike back at their enemies. "But that is not the worst part," Vexthul said. "The worst part is what they have become." New images filled the display, showing the latest intelligence from Earth's surface. Human fighters who had adapted alien technology to their own purposes. Children who had grown up during the war and knew nothing but resistance. Civilian populations that had organized themselves into military units without any formal training. "Look at them," Vexthul said quietly. "Look at what we have created. The images showed scenes that would have been impossible to imagine 18 months earlier. Human teenagers leading combat operations with the skill of veteran soldiers, elderly civilians building bombs in their homes, children as young as 10 serving as scouts and messengers for resistance cells. We have spent 18 months trying to break their will to fight, Vexthul continued. Instead, we have taught an entire species how to wage war more effectively than they ever imagined possible. A new voice spoke from the gallery. Fleet Commander Jahyun appeared on the main communication screen, broadcasting from what had once been the bridge of an alien dreadnought. Behind her stood a mixture of humans from different nations, all wearing the improvised uniforms of Earth's United Resistance. Greetings, Galactic Council, Jahyun said in perfect hegemony standard language. I am Fleet Commander Jahyun of the Terran Defense Force, speaking to you from the bridge of our newest ship, the Inchin's Vengeance. The aliens in the chamber stared in shock. The ship behind her was clearly of hegemony design, but it had been modified with human additions and bore the unmistakable signs of human occupation. We understand you are discussing our situation, Jahyun continued. We thought you might like to hear our perspective. Her image was replaced by a tactical display showing the current state of the war. What the aliens saw made several council members leave their seats entirely. As you can see, Jahyun's voice continued over the display. We have successfully captured or destroyed 47% of your occupation fleet. We have also established permanent bases on 6 worlds in this sector and have begun construction of our own interstellar vessels using technology we have adapted from your forces. The tactical display showed something that should have been impossible. Human forces were no longer confined to Earth. Using captured alien ships and improvised technology, they had spread throughout the local star systems and were actively engaging hegemony forces on equal terms. But we are not here to discuss military statistics, Jahyun said, as her face reappeared on the screen. We are here to discuss terms. Speaker Zephara's form flared with desperate hope. You wish to surrender? The sound that came through the speakers was unmistakably human laughter. Surrender? No. We wish to discuss the terms of your surrender. The chamber erupted in angry voices from the remaining council members, but Jahyun continued speaking over the noise. You came to our world believing you could make us into slaves. You have discovered that humans would rather die than accept slavery. Now we are offering you a choice. Withdraw from our space immediately, or learn what happens when you threaten a species that has no concept of acceptable losses. The display changed one final time, showing images from across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, local populations were rising in rebellion against hegemony rule. The symbol they used was simple, a blue circle representing Earth surrounded by stars. Your war against humanity has taught the galaxy something important, Jahyun said. It has taught them that the hegemony can be resisted. It has taught them that no military force is invincible. Most importantly, it has taught them that some things are worth dying for. The broadcast ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Vexthul looked around at the remaining representatives. I tried to warn you, he said simply. I told you that humans were different. I told you they would not behave like other species. I told you that threatening their survival would turn them into something you could not defeat. He gestured to the empty seats around the chamber. Now look at what your arrogance has cost us. Half our member worlds have abandoned the alliance. Our military forces are demoralized and requesting transfers away from combat zones. Our civilian populations are demanding protection from an enemy that was supposed to be primitive and harmless. Admiral Bektar stood once more, his shell now showing visible cracks from stress. What do you suggest we do? We cannot simply withdraw and admit defeat. It would mean the end of hegemony authority throughout the galaxy. The end of hegemony authority was guaranteed the moment you decided to attack Earth. Vexthul replied, The only question now is whether we end this war through negotiation or through complete destruction of our civilization. Speaker Zephara's form had dimmed to barely a flicker. You believe the humans are capable of destroying us entirely? I believe the humans are capable of making us wish we had never learned their species existed, Vexthul answered. And based on the messages we have received from our own colonies, I believe they have already succeeded. The Council voted that day to authorize peace negotiations with Earth. The vote was unanimous among the remaining members, not because they believed peace was possible, but because the alternative was too terrible to consider. 3 days later, Vexthal stood on the observation deck of a neutral transport ship as it approached Earth. The planet looked different now than it had 18 months ago. The blue oceans were the same, and the white clouds still swirled around the continents, but there was something else visible from orbit: the lights of construction. Humans were rebuilding their world, but they were rebuilding it as a fortress. Orbital platforms surrounded the planet like a crown of thorns. Defensive installations dotted every continent. Most telling of all, dozens of ships moved between Earth and the outer planets, ships that looked like nothing any other species had ever built. "They are not the same species that we first encountered," Vexthal said to his aide. "What do you mean, sir?" 18 months ago, humans were a peaceful species that dreamed of exploring the galaxy and meeting other forms of life. We have taught them that the galaxy is full of enemies who want to destroy them. He paused, watching as a human patrol ship approached their transport. We have turned them into the one thing the galaxy should fear most: a species with advanced technology and no reason to trust anyone but themselves. The peace negotiations lasted 3 months. When they ended, the galaxy had learned a new truth. Some species should never be threatened, because they would rather destroy themselves than accept defeat, and they had the will to take their enemies with them. From his retirement home on a quiet world far from Earth, Vexthal sometimes received messages from former colleagues asking for his analysis of galactic political situations.